Final countdown? Anybody? No? Just me? Let's do this. All right, coaches, last one of the year. We got 25.3. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about it. We got a lot of stuff to coach, a lot of little bitty ditties. So it's going to make the session a little interesting when it comes to unpacking all of it. We've got to go over wall walks, some row efficiency tips. We've got to go over deadlifting. We got to go over cleans, and we got to go over snatches. The final thing we have to go over of those 5 things is really understanding pacing, because this workout really is about people staying on a pace that is specific to them. Do not chase other people on this workout. This is not a chasey. This is a there's a 20-minute time cap for a reason. Those guys on the screen made it look very easy. Not the case for your athletes. Do not go out hot. This is not a hot workout. This is a not workout. This is a not hot workout. You make sure your athletes know that. Anywho, let's unpack all the different pieces that we have to coach. So because we start with wall walks, let's talk about wall walks first. Wall walks, and when it comes to coaching wall walks, they're one of those things that are kind of a sloppy movement. They're hard to maintain good body position. In fact, I would say maintaining a good body position is actually more energy taxing than it is efficient. So if you keep a nice rigid position and you're not circling back and forth too much, it's actually almost a more difficult movement because of how rigid you have to keep everything. It's kind of something we want to think of as like a playground movement. It's not particularly high power. It's relatively slow. There's not a huge functional carryover into other stuff that we do, but it is taxing. I think it's wonderful to throw into competition, to throw a wrench in the works for the psychology of athletes, but there is not like a strict standard for like, this is what the hips do and this is how it all goes. Like, do we want to stay neutral in our spine? Yes. Do we not want to like overextend when we hit the wall? Yeah, we want to avoid those things. But those are kind of going to be the only 2 things that we really want to look at on our athletes. Coaching, making small steps with the hands, so not too big a step to where we're falling down and out of control, and coming down under relative control while still managing those fatigue. So as a coach, when you dig into teaching the wall walk, I usually would use a progression where it's like you're going up part of the way, a little bit further, and then seeing how we can kind of maximize that for each athlete and whatever scales they might be doing. So use a progression that kind of walks them through it, but note that you're going to have some interesting sloppy things on those wall walks just due to the nature of what the movement actually is. Next thing we're going to talk about is the row. So when it comes to the rower, it's not going to be a huge coaching session where you're like going over every little piece of the rower. It's going to be like, hey, let's talk about some efficiency in, driving with the legs and letting the arms follow through. But then more than anything on the rower, it's going to be about staying comfortable. We don't want people really digging in and using a ton of arms and being really inefficient with that, because you're just going to need that for everything else. Because you got the front end rower and the back end rower, you got it when you're fresh and you got it when you're super fatigued. And in both those scenarios, fresh, you're going to want to stay calm. Fatigued, you're going to want to stay efficient, so that way you can kind of lay it all on the line. So when you're coaching the row, it's going to be about focusing with your eyes on making sure people are using their legs, finishing well, and then making sure they're not early arm bending too much to where they're fatiguing their upper body. So those are going to be coaching points for the overall row. That and just making sure that people aren't going out too hot. So staying comfortable and building that into your session, that we go, hey, let's all try a pace. Let's not go so hot that pace is beyond what we should be doing. So something interesting about a row at the beginning of a workout. I know it's not right at the beginning because you have those 5 wall walks ahead of time, but I think you need to make sure that people are not blowing out too hard on this row. 5 wall walks will take people probably about a minute for and they'll come off like being like, cool, I'm not wall walking anymore, and they'll hop on the roller and they'll start going, and they'll probably want to go harder than they should. Have them do a couple hard pulls and then pull back. So when you're coaching and you're getting the general kind of gist of the row out there for people, just make sure that you're not letting people go too hot there. It's one of those things when you toss a row at the front end, all your energy systems are firing like quite well. So you're like, oh, I got this row, I'm gonna push a little pace. But there's nothing to be really won on the row in the front end of the row. The last row, you can send it. But the front end row, that's one where just make sure your athletes are staying comfortable and within their pace, not over pushing their pace by any means. The other things we gotta coach are we gotta coach a deadlift. Now, this deadlift clean snatch combo, this is where I would suggest doing a progression that moves you through all of these. So a progression that starts with a deadlift and then moves from deadlift into doing cleans, moves from cleans into widening the grip, dropping the hips, and doing snatches. So we generally teach a progression like top down, sort of Bergner style, and you could do that if you wanted to, but this is actually probably a more appropriate time to do something like, hey, okay, everybody, we're gonna do a couple deadlifts, start with the bar at your waist, work yourself down to your knees, work yourself down to mid shin, cool, now let's do 10 to 15 deadlifts. Awesome, cool. Now from here, what we're gonna do is take the bar down to your middle of the shin. What we're gonna do is we're gonna deadlift to the mid thigh. So I want you to deadlift to the mid thigh and stop. So do a couple of those. Then deadlift shrug. Cool, then deadlift shrug, muscle clean. Cool, now do the full thing where you're doing from the shin power clean. That's what most of you should be doing for today's workout is a power clean. It shouldn't be a squat clean. Let's keep it light enough to where we can cycle through it like that. So you're teaching people the power clean from the deadlifting portion of it. And then be like, cool, now we're gonna move on to the snatch. And everybody widen up your grip. We're gonna do that same bit of progression to the mid thigh, to the shrug, muscle snatch, power snatch, all from the mid shin, just because that's where they're gonna be pulling from each time today. And that's the general place I'd work from it. Deadlift, eyeballs as a coach, you're gonna go to low backs, bar staying tight to the body, and overall mechanics off the ground being even. You want that to then transfer into the clean. Clean, make sure timing is good, so eyeballs are going to not bending the elbows too soon, letting the hip go, arms stay straight, and then being fast with the elbows through. A thing that people want to do on power cleans is be slow with the elbows. Let's not let that happen today. So power into the bar using good mechanics and speed under with those elbows as we move through it. Snatches, same sort of deal. You just want that wider grip, a good turnover, making sure that they're locking out those arms nice and strong and standing up with it. That's where my eyes would go as a coach, is the same stuff that we did for those cleans, except then making sure that that overhead position looks sound and the grip's not too narrow. A lot of people, when they're transferring from cleans to snatches, they'll take a narrow grip because they're used to doing the clean and it hasn't been a full day on snatches. So just widen up grips to make sure they're appropriate for the individuals who are using them. That being said, as a coach too, I wouldn't let people do squat snatches today or squat cleans. That shouldn't be where they find themselves. And I would say most people should be doing singles once they get to there. The deadlifts can do something where they're doing more reps, but the cleans and the snatches, they're heavy enough and they're far enough along in the workout to where unless someone's quite a hulking individual, they're quite beefy, then singles, like one at a time, just working your way through them, are gonna be pretty appropriate for most. That being said, if you got somebody who loves to hang onto a barbell, don't stop them from doing so. I just think a lot of people are gonna want to do sets and then they're just gonna be sitting there waiting around for a long time. So play with the different individuals. Some larger individuals will like to do bigger sets and then rest for longer. Those of us who are not as large, it makes more sense to not be under fatigue on the eccentric phase of it, which is the downward portion, which is different than training. We're in competition now, so training, you'd wanna hold on to the bar for longer because there's this advantage to the eccentric portion of it being muscle gaining and hypertrophic, that word stuck in my mouth. But when we're talking about competition, it's about energy saving and maintenance. So one at a time with a quick clip is gonna be probably a better bet to coach people into. After that, you move on and finish in that row. And the row is just gonna be one where at the end you wanna make, like that's where people are gonna hurt. If they get there, it's gonna hurt. And the point is to really kind of turn the thumb screws and like maybe take the first 10 calories to breathe, and then it's just everything that you've got, and really coach people to that. This should be one of those like everyone cheering finishes sort of deal where like it just builds for people as they're getting to that end, because it's a good workout for that finish wise in an affiliate. Beyond that, some navigation stuff with it. It's gonna be long heats, so prep for that. You've got these 20-minute heats. People will hit the time cap, many will. And you have to accommodate for whatever rowers that you got on both the front end and the back end, so it makes it a little difficult. So I would just make sure in any of your planning, you just plan out for a relatively quick session to build to these movements, so that way you have a good like 40 minutes to run 2 heats. You need 45, so you're gonna be pretty much jumping people right in. So you shouldn't have some big, long, flushed out like progression for each one of these. It should be just build, and then finish from there. So it's gonna be the last of the year. It's gonna be great. I believe in all of you. Good luck out there, y'all. Let's crush some 23.5. Wait, 25.3. That's the one.